on error management. Good day, teachers. The purpose of this session is to give you the layout or foundations. In a way, it's a review of how to manage errors in class and the kind of culture of error management that we want to promote in the school. In order to do this first part, which has been a session that has been postponed already 3 times, is based on 5 main topics, which I'm going to read for you here in the agenda. The first is basically a set of questions of what we understand by errors, sources of mistakes, oral feedback, written feedback, and on-growth mindset, which is fundamentally the connection between what we believe is an error in the studies made and also how it connects to our new pedagogical approach. So let's get started. Because this was meant to be a sort of workshop, what I'm going to ask of you is to pause this video as soon as you find moments in which you have to make some sort of annotation, or when you are asked questions such as you are going to find in this part. What do we understand by errors? And by that I mean, why do errors take place when students are learning a language? When do they happen? In the written or in the oral context, or in a specific context where they have to provide some specific chunk of language or a vocabulary chunk that they don't know when or how to use. How do we manage those errors in the setting of a classroom, when we manipulate a document made by them, etc.? And what can they do with the feedback that we give them? Those are like the 4 large questions. And what kind of feedback, of course, we're giving them when it comes to understanding errors. So in a way, I'm sorry to say, I don't define errors basically, but the context in which errors take place. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video for a moment here and then write your answers or your when, why, how, and what kind of reflections, because this is more a space for reflection building, okay? I am assuming that you already have your answers at hand, so I'm going to move on to the types of mistakes. In English learning, when it comes to a second language or even as a foreign language, there are 3 types of mistakes that happen in a class. There are sleeps, there are errors, and there are attempts. Now the sleeps, I suppose they are the most superfluous ones. Less concerning, I take it, until they become errors, so there is that. So sleeps make reference particularly to mistakes that students can easily self-correct once the mistake is pointed out at them. That is the case of, for example, the with and with kind of, or with kind of mistake that they usually do. They can easily self-correct if you point at them at the right direction. The next level of profundity, I suppose, is errors, and they are mistakes that they cannot correct on their own and that require some sort of explanation from the teacher's part. And the last one, but these errors happen within the range of things that they are learning in class, okay? Whereas the attempts are like is not such the deeper situation of the errors, but more likely the other context of the error. And it's a fortunate one, I think, because attempts are situations in which students try to say something and cannot manage to properly say it because they don't yet know the correct way of expressing this idea, which means that they are trying to express ideas that are beyond their scope of expression. So the complexity of the idea surpasses them. And so not only does it require more support on the part of the teachers, but it also means that they are expanding beyond what they are capable of. And that is anyways a good type of attempt. It's a good type of mistake. It also gives you information on how they are understanding language, and that is also good. I remember one 6th of January or something a couple of years ago, my nephew was really, really small. And we were undoing the Christmas tree. And my sister was very carefully taking down the decorations, the adornments, etc. Some of them are made of glass. They're very delicate. They're old, etc., etc. And so he wanted to help us. And she said, no, no, no. Then you get hurt or something gets damaged. And he said, no mami, yo te prometo, voy a hacerlo con cuidadeza. And this cuidado and delicadeza combination is an attempt of something that he doesn't know how to manage, but it's an expansion of the things that he can already, that make part of his experience expressing ideas, okay? So that is an attempt. Now, again, you have an opportunity here to pause the video and make a list of the types of mistakes, such as slips, errors, and attempts, according to the explanation that I gave you, that happen in your classroom. For that, take all the time you need, make your list, and then, of course, at some point or another, we're going to share with each other our types of slips found in the classroom. In the next part of this, we have oral feedback. And the conundrum of the oral feedback is accuracy versus fluency. That is not to say that one is more important than the other. It's more around the lines of understanding that one takes place in a different setting than the other. Accuracy is for language, form, and meaning. Therefore, we're talking about non-communicative tasks. Whereas fluency is about, indeed, communicative settings and situations. So both of them have different approaches to identifying or showing incorrectness or correcting our kids. We're going to start, of course, with the accuracy ones, where we, again, make emphasis on language form and meaning, the structures of language, the conjugation, the verb tenses, the word forms, etc., and in the cases in which we specifically use them. How to show correctness? We have repeating, echoing, statement and question, expression, hinting, and reformulation. The most typical one is reformulation. And when we show correctness, first, important to try not to interrupt the speech that is being made. But rather, once the statement is being made, then we repeat the statement, or we try to make a question where they have the opportunity to notice the mistake. In echoing, we have a similar situation. In echoing, we have the case of she said me that this or that, and then you ask like, you mean she told you that whatever, so that they remember or they make the connection, said me or told me, etc. Hinting is something that happens when the kids do not know how to finish a sentence or a chunk of language. Statement and question, so you repeat the sentence that the student has said and then ask specifically about the part that doesn't work here. So, and it's a very similar question. What doesn't work quite here? What sounds off in this question? Where you go to school? So, where go to school? Where do you go to school? Whatever. I mean, you provide like the scenario where they feel more comfortable, but they realize where the mistake is. What you see here, in any case, is that you are not saying, no, this is wrong. This is the right way of saying it. And you are actually making it evident that there is something that doesn't work in the statement, but you are making it in a different way. More productive because, yes, you may show them where the mistake is, but the purpose is to allow them to find the answer within themselves, especially when the content is within the reach of their development, which is to say, content that they have already seen, even superfluously, but still seen. So these are the techniques for showing incorrectness in the context of non-communicative tasks. You can find more examples of showing incorrectness techniques in the book of Jeremy Harmer of the Practice of English Language Teaching, which I can give you a copy of later on. I mean, that part, not the book. Sorry. And then the second one, fluency, is within a communicative task. Now, the thing about fluency is that you don't want to interrupt the student either. Second, it takes a more sustained effort because those are more extensive samples of vocabulary. Sorry, it's not more extensive samples of vocabulary, but more extensive samples of communication. And therefore, because we are focusing on what he wants to say, the ideas that he wants to share, we are not going to stop them there on their tracks and then just interrupt them because of the last point that we are talking about. But at this point, I'm going to just mention that we have by prompting, reformulating, recording mistakes, and involving students. In the case, for instance, of recording mistakes, I'm going to show you a bit of an exercise in which you take a chart, and it's going to be in the annex of this audio or video recording, where you choose specific aspects that you're going to review. For example, you choose to review elements of pronunciation or intonation or vocabulary or grammar or the organization or order or sequence or hierarchy of their ideas, etc., etc. So you take notes in a chart that has enough space for you to make or annotations, and then once the intervention of the student is done, then you can go ahead and provide them with feedback. Now, in the case of the gentle correction, most of the times we repeat the same but more extensive anyways techniques that we found in showing correctness in accuracy. But in this case, we are adding one more thing here, and it's involving students in providing feedback and also making them do their self-assessments, and that is also important. We're going to move to the next point, which is the written work. Now, in case of the written work, we have a selective marking. We know that we sometimes want to check it all, review it all, but no, we have to make a selective marking according to the stages of the written production. If it's a first draft, if it's a second or third reviewed work, or if it's the final version of the text. And that is in order to drive or promote self-awareness of how I write, the mistakes that I tend to make, how to organize my ideas better, how to become more aware of the mistakes that I make. And that's part of the reasons why the feedback in the written work needs to be selective. Now, in the next slide, I'm going to share with you the types of symbols that I use, but also the stages and the focus of selective marking. So you can basically make an exercise only to focus on spelling or punctuation or grammar and verb tenses or sentence structure, or the use of certain expressions like linkers and conjunctions, or on paragraphing or paragraph structure. Those are the things that you can do that don't necessarily mean that you're going to write everything, because not only is it more exhausting to you, but it also doesn't help the student target his attention in a single, very rich learning experience. Because remembering it all and how it connects and how it's different is complicated. So there is that. So I've got here this missing word, extra word, capitalization, spelling, word form, etc. And I also have another set of codes that have been the result of my experience with my students. So I use colors to make sure that they know that this is a word that I don't understand, or that this is informal or generic, or there is redundancy here, or this particular expression is oral but not used in written expression, especially in B level. And also when there is a well-achieved idea, I think that it's important to provide also positive feedback. And so I use all of those codes, and you can choose yours, but you have to make sure that you're consistent with them throughout the year, because they're going to be asking you a lot in the beginning, and then when it becomes sort of second nature, it's going to be easier for them to manage. So I'm fast moving towards the next one, and these are these different types of the written stages of the process. So in the first one, if you see, I'm checking mechanics, conjunctions, and I don't know, probably punctuation. I don't even remember what this was. In this second version, I have actually, I think this is the first version. Spelling, punctuation, and grammar. This is one. In the next version, I check mechanics, coherence, and I don't know. Pro is something that I suppose that I don't remember right now when I was checking. And here, conjunctions, mechanics, and again, PR. You just have to make sure. The point is that you're not going to revise everything. That is complicated. You want to focus or target not just your energies, but also their attention in this. And finally, the affect effect, which is something we're going to explore in the second part of this presentation. Thank you for your attention. Bye.